Hey everybody, welcome back to Starflagmedia Gaming. I don't come on the camera very often because, it's easier for me to write out a script and get into whatever details I want to get into. But this new topic, it's not even a new topic. I just want to talk about Valve and Half-Life 3 and how I was watching the last Sony presentation, the state of play, and all the comments, man, all I kept seeing was Half-Life 3, Half-Life 3. They're going to announce it, Half-Life 3. And it's been 20 years of nothing. That's how long it's been since we as gamers have been chasing the ghost of Gordon Freeman. We grew up when games were finished. Very rarely were games broken and were to the point where they'd reissue the CD or reissue a cartridge. Now, it did happen. It wasn't unheard of, but it was rare at the time. It definitely wasn't something that we were preparing for when we plunked down 50, 60 bucks, especially 20, 30 years ago. Adjusted for inflation, you're talking about $100 per game. Like, we take that for granted, how much cheaper video games have gotten over the amount of time that they've been out. And I know that that's a hot topic, maybe for another video. But when you get a game like Half-Life 2, Episode 2, with such a giant cliffhanger, right? It meant that a sequel was coming eventually. You'd think it was. Not a 2-decade-long silence. I felt that with Shenmue, for example. When Shenmue 3 came out, and finally I felt like I was going to get the resolution to this saga that I loved, and that didn't happen. But then Half-Life Alyx happened, and it proved that Valve hadn't forgotten how to make a masterpiece, really. They just needed a reason to build it. Ever since then, though, the pipe dream has been simple. Please, Valve, release a new standalone VR headset with Half-Life 3 support. Just launch it alongside it. We'll be happy. It'll be the mythical unicorn that we've all been waiting for. In November 2025, it felt like that prophecy was finally fulfilling itself when Valve officially unveiled the Steam Frame. And then alongside it, they said a new Steam machine and a second generation controller was coming. The hype was electric. But as we sit here in February of 2026, the silence from Valve isn't just Valve time anymore. It's something more dangerous. Today, we're looking at why convergence of Half-Life 3 and the Steam Frame is kind of hitting a wall. It's a hard reality, but it is what it is. And the hardware reality of all of that is that the Steam Frame, we don't even know if it's ready. Let's look at what's actually under the hood of the Steam Frame. Valve isn't messing around with the specs. So we're talking about Snapdragon 8 Generation 3 processors and 16 gigabytes of unified RAM and dual 2K LCD panels running up to 144 hertz. It sounds like a beast. Essentially, it's a Steam Deck that you wear on your face. But here's the dilemma. Standalone virtual reality requires a massive processing power to hit Half-Life quality without a wire. And let's not even talk about battery life. Let's just keep going from here. Now, while the frame features eye tracking for what they're calling foveated rendering to save on performance, it still faces massive physical limitations with that, as aforementioned, 21.6 watt battery. Now, they're not doing Nintendo magic here, unless they are and we don't know it. Maybe they are, who knows? But you can't cheat physics a lot of the times, and to run a game that we're expecting Half-Life 3 to be at that level, you either need a high-end PC or a headset that's going to cost more than a lot of teenagers' first cars. And that brings us to the biggest hardware reality check of all, the price. Valve originally expected the frame to be cheaper than the Index, but that was before the world ran out of memory and AI took over. We've seen this movie before, guys. From the abandoned Steam Link hardware to the first generation Steam machines that died on arrival. Valve has a history of brilliant ideas that get swallowed by Valve time. Or even when they shift corporate focuses, right? And right now, that focus is being forcibly shifted onto, in my last video, what I called RAM-mageddon. This isn't just a catchy name, it's a global crisis. PC Mag and Bloomberg are reporting that the memory shortage is so severe that it's driving the price of Switch 2 up and delaying the PlayStation 6 possibly until 2029. Valve is already feeling that burn, obviously, with earlier this month, they officially delayed the price and the release date of the Steam Frame and Steam Machine because component costs, they're skyrocketing. In the US, the Steam Deck OLED is already out of stock. The LCD one is no longer going to be made. And scalpers on Newegg are already pushing the deck prices up to $1,000, guys. And if Valve can't even keep the handheld in stock, how are they supposed to launch a high-end VR headset and a new console in the middle of a chip war at an affordable price? The hard truth that really hurts the most is that even if the hardware was ready tomorrow, the idea of Half-Life 3 launching alongside it is still likely a fantasy. No leaks, there's no real talks about it, nothing's really gotten out. To top Alex, Valve would need to reinvent the wheel again. But Valve has already stated on record that no first-party VR content is currently in development for the Steam Frame's launch. Look at the financials with RAM prices up 172%. The cost of manufacturing that headset with 16 gigabytes of RAM right now is astronomical. And to make Half-Life 3 a, quote, bundled in success, Valve would have to subsidize the hardware at a loss that they're not probably willing to take right now. It doesn't make any sense, especially with any kind of global economics coming to play. Between the lore of how to follow the Alex ending and the economic impossibilities of making it a budget high-end VR launch, the convergence of Half-Life 3 and the Steam Frame look less like a prophecy and more like a pipe dream. So, where does that leave us? Are we just destined to wait another 20 years? Not necessarily, but while a full-blown Half-Life 3 launch title feels impossible right now in this RAM-mageddon economy, there is still hope for realistic expectations. We might see smaller VR experiences or tech demos to show off the Frame's Wi-Fi 7 streaming capabilities. We'll likely see more fan-led creations, maybe a Half-Life 2 VR mod. I'm just hoping here, guys. The legacy of Valve isn't just about the games that they release, it's about the hardware standards that they set. If you're waiting for the perfect moment where a $400 headset is going to pop up with Half-Life 3 bundled together, you're probably waiting for a world that doesn't exist anymore. I hate to break it to you. The era of cheap hardware, yeah, that's at an end. And AI is now first, and chip priority for them is here to stay in the foreseeable future, at least in the next couple years. Is the Steam Frame still a must buy for you, even without a new Half-Life? Or are those $1,000 Steam Deck prices a sign that we should all just kind of stick to our backlogs until 2029 and see what happens? Let's talk about the Valve pipe dream in the comments below. This is news for gamers who grew up when games were still games. As always, I want to thank you guys for being here with me. Appreciate it. We're trying to get to 5,000 subscribers by the end of the year. Join me. Leave a comment down below. Like, share, subscribe. We are Starflagmedia Gaming, and I will catch you guys in the next video. Peace! I'm looking over at the stop recording button.